Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to this ordinary meeting, the February meeting for 2021. I want to welcome all the councillors and council staff and our guest, Pastor Ian Jack and his wife. Thank you for being with us. And to all those who are viewing via live stream. Councillors, as you would be aware, that our meeting today will consider the Sunshine Coast Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan, the RAP for 2021-22, and this continues Council's commitment to reconciliation, building on from the adoption of the first RAP of any council in Queensland in 2011. In recognition of this significant report, this morning we welcome Councillor David Law, who will do a First Nations acknowledgement to country. We had hoped Auntie Helena Goulash from the First Nations Kabi Elder would be able to provide a welcome to country, but unfortunately she's been delayed and hasn't been able to arrive on time. So I'd ask Councillor Law if he would be upstanding, and I'll ask the Chamber to be upstanding as Councillor Law speaks. Thank you, Councillor Law.
Mr Mayor, councillors, staff, on behalf of our council, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the Sunshine Coast local government area. The Kabi people of the coastal plains and northern hinterland, and on whose lands we gather today, and the Jinnaburra peoples of the southern hinterland. We recognise that these have always been the places of cultural, spiritual, social and economic significance. The traditional custodians' unique values and ancient and enduring cultures deepen and enrich the life of our community. Today we're going to look at our Innovate RAP, Reconciliation Action Plan, on behalf of Council to demonstrate our commitment to working with the First Nations people and the traditional owners of the Sunshine Coast to support their self-determination through the economy, through the community, and by building relationships and fostering respect. Part of that journey will be truth-telling, which is extremely significant and important for First Nations people. And I believe we are committed to better understanding the collective history of our region and the experiences of our First Nations people. Legacy issues resulting from colonisation are still experienced by traditional custodians and First Nations people. And for our current generations, more significantly, are those who continue to experience the trauma of the stolen generation, and how that trauma transitions through to the other generations who followed them. So we recognise our shared history and will continue to work in partnership to provide a foundation for building a shared future with the Kabi people and the Jinnaburra people. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. I'd ask the Chamber to remain upstanding as I invite Pastor Ian Jack from the Nambour Christian Church to read the prayer before today's meeting. Thank you, Pastor Ian.
Thank you, Mayor Jamieson. Would you join me please in prayer? Great God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, today in the presence of these community leaders, I say thank you for the many daily blessings we enjoy here on this beautiful Sunshine Coast, for the rain, the sunshine, the rich supply of oxygen for every breath we take, also for our daily food, for our health and for our families, and for your offer of salvation through your Son, Jesus Christ. We never want to take all these for granted without saying our sincere thank you. Today I also ask for heavenly wisdom for Mayor Jamieson and Divisional Councillors Arowski, Cox, Dixon, Hungerford, Johnson, Landsberg, Law, Natoli, I pray and Suarez, in their deliberations and decisions in this March 25 Council meeting and all future ones. We ask this so that this Sunshine Coast region will increasingly become one of the healthiest and God-blessed places to live on planet Earth. Be pleased to bless every individual and family on the coast and in the hinterland. So, we both thank you and ask these things in the name of your Son, the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Pastor Ian. Please remain upstanding. I'm now going to hand over to CEO Emma Thomas for a moment of remembrance.
Councillors, this morning we remember a valued staff member, John Reynolds, who has passed away recently. John served the community as a valued member of the Civil Asset Management branch since joining the council in 2011. He most recently was part of a team that successfully delivered the Parklands Boulevard upgrade. He was loved and respected by all his colleagues and was admired for his willingness to go the extra mile and deliver these great construction outcomes for our community. We pass our condolences to John's family and friends as we remember him today.
Thank you. Please be seated. We have apologies today from Michael Costello, the Acting Group Executive Business Performance, and Paul Skillen will be acting in that role. Councillors, the minutes of the meeting, the ordinary meeting held on the 25th of February 2021 have been received and confirmed. Could I have someone move that? Councillor Dixon has moved, Councillor Johnston has seconded. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Councillors, I'd like to draw to your attention that on the 12th of October 2020, amendments to the Local Government Act 2009 and the Local Government Regulation 2012 came into force. The amendments include the new Chapter B, which sets out new legislative requirements for dealing with councillors' conflict of interest in local government matters. These arrangements will apply to how we manage such matters at today's meeting. So I'd urge councillors who have a prescribed conflict of interest or a declarable conflict of interest to do that prior to the item being addressed. Can I hand to you, Madam CEO?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Mr Mayor and councillors, I've received notification of a declarable conflict of interest from Councillor Suarez. The interest relates to Councillor Suarez's participation in decisions relating to the Sunshine Coast Airport Community Aviation Forum.
Thank you, Madam CEO. And councillors, on that note, as I notified you at the special meeting of the 9th of November 2020, under section 150EL brackets 3 brackets B of the Local Government Act 2009, I have a prescribed conflict of interest in matters associated with or impacting on the Sunshine Coast Airport, and as such I must not participate in a decision relating to such matters. As you're aware, as President of the Local Government Association of Queensland, I'm an employer representative director on LGIA Super, which holds a 50% interest in the Sunshine Coast Airport through its asset manager, Palisade Investment Partners. The President of the LGAQ has historically been nominated as a Director of the Local Government Superannuation Scheme. I've held the position of Director of LGIA since July 1, 2018. I receive a remuneration for this role, and this is noted on my Register of Interest. Other entities with an interest in the Sunshine Coast Airport are Pinnacle Fund Services Limited, a responsible entity for Palisade Investment Partners Diversified Infrastructure No. 1 Fund, and Perpetual Trust Services Limited as a responsible entity for Palisade Investment Partners Diversified Infrastructure Fund No. 2. Any decision making by council or council officers on matters associated with or impacting on the Sunshine Coast Airport may be either beneficial or detrimental to the interests of Palisade Investment Partners, LGIA Super and other entities with a shareholding in the Sunshine Coast Airport. Therefore, I will not be participating in the decision relating to Councillor Suarez's declarable conflict of interest and will leave the meeting for the duration of the consideration and the vote. For completeness, I ask that the full details of my prescribed conflict of interest are notified as notified on 9 November 2020, be included in the minutes of today's meeting. And on that note, I'll ask the Deputy Mayor to take the chair.
Thank you, Mayor Jameson. Councillors, before I ask for the councillor to make their declaration, just to remind you, this is a procedural motion, so you're very welcome to ask questions after the declaration, but it's not for debate. But I believe you have a declaration to make, Councillor Suarez.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I, Councillor Suarez, notify that I have a declarable conflict of interest insofar as I previously held the position of President of the Flight Path Forum prior to my election as a councillor of the Sunshine Coast Regional Council in 2020. My historical position and relationship or work with Flight Path Forum could reasonably be presumed to create a perceived conflict between my personal interests and the public interest, which I will seek to represent as Council's appointed representative on the Sunshine Coast Airport Community Aviation Forum. I wish to take up the position of Council's appointed representative on the Sunshine Coast Airport Community Aviation Forum, however will not do so until such time as Council considers this declarable conflict of interest at this ordinary meeting 25th of March 2021.
Councillor Suarez, thank you for your declaration. Councillors, the eligible councillors at this meeting must, by resolution, decide if Councillor Suarez may or may not participate in decisions relating to the Sunshine Coast Airport Community Aviation Forum. And in accordance with Section 150 ES(3) of the Local Government Act 2009, I now call for a councillor to move that Councillor Suarez either may or may not participate in decisions relating to the Sunshine Coast Airport Community Aviation Forum. Should I remind you that should the majority of eligible councillors decide it is in the public interest for the councillor to participate in decisions relating to this matter, reasons for this decision will need to be recorded in the minutes. Do I have someone to move? Councillor Cox.
Happy to move that she may.
And could you outline a reason? Yep. From the list?
I think that the councillor for Division 9 has displayed exemplary decision making in her position here in the last 12 months. So I think item 2, the historical in-depth knowledge of the issue held by the councillor.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Natoli. So I'll just remind you that this is for may participate. So in accordance with 150 ES. Yeah. 3, A(I) of the Local Government Act 2009, that despite Councillor Suarez's conflict of interest, Councillor Suarez may participate in discussions, deliberations or decisions relating to the Sunshine Coast Airport Community Aviation Forum for the following reason. Item 2. Can I have a vote? Can we take a vote on that? Sorry, my apologies. Councillor Maria, would you like to add any more information?
Yes, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to clarify that the only decision that needs to be made is whether or not I am the council's representative on the Community Aviation Forum. The forum itself is not a decision-making entity, it's a discussion or contribution-making entity. It's where I would be able to represent the views of constituents, particularly in Division 9, but for the broader Sunshine Coast in terms of any operations relating to the Sunshine Coast Airport. I'd also like to disclose that I was President of Flight Path Forum for a period of 5 months, maybe just shy of 5 months, and I resigned my position as President prior to announcing that I would run as a candidate for Sunshine Coast Council. It's very clear in my mind, and I reiterate this to the community, that Council has no decision-making role in terms of flight paths, and this aviation forum is not the place to be discussing the flight paths. It is a forum, however, where we can discuss noise mitigation measures, aircraft operations that may negatively impact upon the community, and also economic benefits to the wider Sunshine Coast. When I was campaigning as a candidate for Sunshine Coast Council, I actually campaigned on the Regional Economic Development Strategy, and while it's not my portfolio, I have read that document, and advocate strongly for the aviation industry here on the Sunshine Coast and improvements in that area. I recognise that there may be a perception that there would be a conflict, and to that regard, I took independent legal advice, which indicates that I do not have a perceived conflict due to sections 150EF2A, which means I would receive no greater benefit or impact to anyone else in the broader community, and section 150EN, which means any decisions would be contrary to the public interest. So I believe under those two sections of legal advice, and also in line with the Councillor Code of Conduct, I would be a good representative for the Council to be on the Community Aviation Forum.
Thank you very much, Councillor Suarez, for that very relevant additional information. Any questions, councillors? I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour? That's unanimous. I'll now hand the chair back over to the Mayor.
Okay, councillors, we'll resume on item 8 point... sorry, my apologies. One step before then. Councillors, research indicates that 1 in 6 women have experienced physical violence by a current or previous partner, while 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men have experienced emotional abuse. Between July 2006 and June 2020, there was a total of 350 domestic and family homicides in Queensland. In my role as the President of the Local Government Association of Queensland, I have initiated a new domestic and family violence campaign, Not in Our Backyard, Stop Abuse at the Start. And I've called on Queensland mayors to sign the pledge and back this campaign. This campaign is something that I am personally committed to, and it has been designed in response to the report, Not Now, Not Ever, Put an End to Domestic and Family Violence in Queensland, which confirmed the importance of all spheres of government working together to combat this hideous issue. As Mayor of the Sunshine Coast Council, I want to take this opportunity to formally sign the pledge within our formal meeting to reinforce my commitment and that of our Sunshine Coast Council to addressing this scourge of domestic and family violence in both our workplace and our community. And if I can ask someone to move that recommendation, I'd be very grateful. Thank you, Councillor Babrossi, seconded by Councillor Winston. Thank you. Does anybody wish to speak to the motion, the recommendation? Okay, thank you. I'm going to sign. Sorry, should put the motion. Please, all those in favour? Thank you, that's carried unanimously. This is what I'm signing, by the way. And today's date is the 25th. There you are, councillors, on behalf of the Sunshine Coast Council. We reinforce our commitment. Thank you. Okay, we'll now move to item 8.1, which is the Sunshine Coast Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan 2021-22. We're having a presentation, and Auntie Helena, I understand, has now arrived, so it's appropriate that Auntie Helena Goulash address Council. Welcome, Auntie Helena. Please come in. And we'll hear from Auntie Helena as the opening to our first item. Thank you, Auntie Helena.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nara, hello everyone, and a warm welcome to this beautiful part of Cubby Cubby country. It's an honour to be here today as a Cubby Cubby woman representing our group, but also to acknowledge the Jinnaburra peoples as the other group of traditional owners of this Sunshine Coast Council region. It was part of the greater Kabi Kabi language group, Kabi Kabi Nation, that lived right along this coastal hinterland area for millennia. Kabi Kabi peoples and Jinnaburra peoples were the original occupants and had developed highly sophisticated knowledge systems over tens of thousands of years. Knowledge systems including our own science, very different worldview, very different way of looking at the world to the next group of peoples who came here. And sadly, that very different view of the world created some conflict. Today, it is being acknowledged around the world that First Nations peoples have developed knowledge systems that are very different to what Europeans first thought they were. Rather than simplistic, primitive, the knowledge systems are being regarded today as having a lot of value. Thinking about our First Nations Kabi Kabi science in terms of living in balance with nature. So now the climate change movement is looking towards First Nations peoples as having a lot of valuable knowledge that could play a vital role in going forward. I'm honoured to be here today because I know that it is a momentous occasion in terms of, as I understand it, the first time there has been a welcome to country here in council, in the council meeting. And also because you are launching your RAP, the third RAP. Kabi Kabi peoples and Jinnaburra peoples, we've been developing relationships with councillors and your staff over many, many years. I'm hoping that, and this is why I thought it was important to be here today, that the progress you've made with the RAP in terms of it being your third one, and a lot of the other exciting developments that Council has in your planning, I'm hoping that it is now timely for us to really talk about how traditional owners, Kabi Kabi peoples and Jinnaburra peoples can be engaged with Council in a more dynamic and in a way that is really about empowerment of traditional owners, Kabi Kabi peoples. To have partnerships that we really need with Council, and I commend Council for the work that you've been doing in terms of getting the First Nations team, partnerships team, up and running, I think, in an exciting way, as they have been recently. And in the work that you've done in engaging Kabi Kabi and Jinnaburra peoples already. However, I do think it's time to really take it to another level. And I'm confident that we can. I mean, this is an amazing part of not just Australia, but the world. We know that. This amazing landscape that everyone talks about and everyone wants to come up here to enjoy, we can offer you, the Council, a way of taking that to another level, because you've got something so unique here. Kabi Kabi peoples and Jinnaburra peoples, we're embedded into the landscape. It's been happening over tens of thousands of years. So we haven't just got these monumental landforms, we've got the descendants of the Kabi Kabi peoples who were here tens of thousands of years ago, and the history, the cultural history has been passed on. Now that is something that can enrich everyone's lives, including visitors to this area. And Cubby Cubby peoples, we and Jinnaburra peoples, we're very keen to work towards partnerships that can be much more dynamic. Perhaps, you know, we could get the wonderful university that we have here on our country, on Cubby Cubby country, Cubby Cubby Dargan. Perhaps we could get them involved in looking at what is the best sort of engagement model? What does make a dynamic partnership? Because I am confident, and I'm not sure if people have seen a bit of a bio, I'm confident based upon the long professional history in Indigenous affairs, First Nations affairs that I've had over a long, long time. I'm confident that this area, the Sunshine Coast Council region, it can become a leader in terms of First Nations engagement, First Nations leadership. But it has to be done properly, to follow protocols. It's not about First Nations as this big homogenous group. The Cubby Cubby peoples and the Jinnaburra peoples, it's our cultural history that's interwoven into this country. Doesn't mean that the others who've come along, just like Europeans have, onto our country, don't have a place to be included. But to do it properly, in terms of First Nation protocols, there needs to be this focus on the engagement, the partnerships with Cubby Cubby peoples. Many of you, I'm sure, know that Cubby Cubby for about 30 years, and I remember well because I was there from those earliest stages with my late mum. We've been fighting to progress our rights and recognition through many processes, but particularly the native title process, which is an horrendous process, I'll have to say, without going into it too much. But we are at the point where we're working with the Queensland Government to negotiate an Indigenous land use agreement. That is looking over our whole country, and it's particularly looking at the what used to be called unallocated state lands, the lands that come under the title of the Queensland Government. So there's a lot of work that is being done, but we know that it's the councils who are closest to your communities who are here right on the ground. And Cubby Cubby peoples and Jinnaburra peoples, well, I can't really speak for Jinnaburra, they're at a slightly different stage of their native title, but Cubby Cubby peoples, we want to sit with council and talk about the planning we've been doing, the priorities that we've set over a long period of time. We're very happy to work in with council with your planning and look at how we can come together, find common goals. We also have priorities that we've identified, and it would be lovely if we could talk about those together and how we can be moving those forward together. And this area can become a great leader in terms of First Nations arts and cultural expression through contemporary arts and also with cultural tourism. It's well documented how much time the average Australian dedicates or is involved in the arts cultural area. Some people might be surprised that it is like they spend more money, they spend more time at arts cultural events than they do at sports. We wouldn't believe it, would we, from what we see on TV? But there is a strong interest internationally. Australia used to be the leader in Indigenous cultural tourism. We've fallen behind. Australia used to be the leader in ecotourism, which clearly has a strong connect to in First Nation cultural tourism. Let's work together to really raise the bar. I know you're doing it in your own way, but there are some areas that we can really work closely with you on to make it so much better. And to do that, there does have to be the truth-telling. So we do have to address that. And it's confronting. It has to start somewhere. I don't know how many people have been over to the university gallery. There's an exhibition on there at the moment, the Myall Creek Massacre. It's confronting. They've had great panels speaking. I was over there recently with a panel and talking about how wonderful it is to see the exhibition here. But we need to start bringing that truth out about the massacres and the other sad, not just sad, but absolutely heartbreaking things that happened on our country. It's not called Murdering Creek for nothing. But it is confronting. It's our generation, though. Our generations, there's a lot more younger than me now. We're not ashamed of the truth. And to share with you my, I don't know if I can say it's pride in the truth, but my willingness to look at truth-telling. I don't go around talking about it, seeking pity or whatever, because I was brought up by a proud cubby mum and by a proud European dad. But I would like to share with you that I grew up with my mum, born and bred on Cherbourg Mission. She comes from an unbroken line of cubby women. There's all these, funny things that get said, and one of them is that you always know who the mother is. Mum grew up, knew all our old people. She's brought me up to be very strong about it. But I'll have to share with you that I grew up knowing not one non-Aboriginal relation apart from my dad. And I loved my dad too. Mum and Dad both came up here to end their last days up here together. My dad was a young man, migrated from Europe, war-torn Europe, in 1950, from what was Czechoslovakia. I have so many friends who have Aboriginal mums and European men, they're first generation Australian, whose families migrated over to Australia. They were able to give each other something. Both of them were experiencing racism in different ways. They were able to give each other something. And my dad gave me and my 6 siblings something as well. But we know we didn't meet any of Dad's family because anyone knowing a bit more about Eastern European history, he lost contact with his family and we reconnected in 1989. But Mum don't know none of the non-Aboriginal males on Mum's side of the family. I'll just leave you with that. You can work out, you can put the pieces together. But it is confronting. But unless we do it, it's always going to be there. So we're happy as traditional owners to work with you on all of those areas, those that are very sensitive and for everyone, as well as those that are an obvious win-win situation where we can just really, enhance everything about this beautiful, beautiful area, the Sunshine Coast region. It's an absolute privilege and honour to be here this morning. And congratulations again. And it was wonderful that the event was held recently. So you're doing great things. Let's just keep doing more and do it more closely together.
Well, thank you very much, Auntie Helena, and it's a wonderful introduction to our upcoming discussion on the RAP, and I'd ask the councillors to show their appreciation through acclamation. I'd now like to introduce Stephen Mam and Natalie King, who are going to give us the presentation today on the RAP. I want to congratulate Stephen on his organisation and the conduct of the Indigenous Convention Forum that was staged at Twin Waters during the week, where I had the opportunity to go and speak myself, and I know Councillor Law and Emma also participated. And I think it was, what's particularly notable is that Stephen and Natalie and other Indigenous members of our community and our staff played a vital role in the conduct of that gathering, and only good can come from that. So, Stephen, I'll hand over to you for the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It is great to be here today to present the Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan for Council's consideration. The new RAP builds on the previous two documents that Council has had in place. There are 4 levels, 4 aspects of the RAP, which includes respect, enriching relationships, governance, and engagement. The key achievements over the last 2 to 2.5 years has included a partnership with the Sunshine Coast First Nations Network Group. This partnership has allowed Council to engage and consult with the external First Nations community, including Cubby Cubby and Yinabara peoples, but also the First Nations people from different countries around Southeast Queensland. Another achievement for the Sunshine Coast Council has been the Kids in Action Environmental Education Program. This program has been award-winning and incorporates First Nations pedagogy or ways of learning. Sunshine Coast Council has initiated the training and contracts for 2 traditional custodian fire hazard reduction environmental officers, including 1 Cubby Cubby traditional custodian and 1 Yinabara traditional custodian. All along, Council has demonstrated strong First Nations representation at key Council events, including Reconciliation Week, NAIDOC Week, featuring Council's flag raising ceremony in Nambour, and support of other external community events. Council has also supported the key signature event of the region, the Horizons Festival, with a First Nations program. Successful implementation of the Cultural Training Awareness Program has also had great uptake, with over 90% of Council employees completing the online training. Finally, one of Council's key achievements has also been the development of a First Nations employment and procurement guidelines, which helps streamline and facilitate First Nations businesses and the uptake of First Nations staff. As part of the Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan, Council engaged a workshop with the development of the artwork. This workshop was the idea of Kabi Kabi and Unibara, and involved 2 days at Unibara's art workshop. The engagement was great, the relationships are ongoing, and the outcomes will be long-term. It's vital that Sunshine Coast Council's Reconciliation Action Plan and the work that Council does completes and nurtures these relationships moving forwards. The key deliverables of the new Innovate Reconciliation Action Plan include a cultural learning strategy to build on the engagement that is currently happening. It also includes endorsing Sunshine Coast Council's community engagement framework and developing a First Nations guideline for engagement. Council will develop a cultural protocol document which will include procedures and policies for cultural heritage. Sunshine Coast Council will investigate opportunities to address cultural safety within the organisation, which entails an analysis and review of all of Council's facilities to ensure that they are culturally safe and appropriate for First Nations people. Another key deliverable of the Innovate RAP is First Nations recruitment, retention, and a professional development strategy. And this will build on the First Nations employment and procurement guidelines. A real strategy to develop and understand how targets can be developed and achieved. Mr. Chair, this is the end of my presentation, and the recommendations are on the screen. I'm very happy to take questions.
Thank you, Stephen. Somebody like to move the report? Councillor Law, thank you very much. Can I have a seconder? Councillor O'Prey, thank you. Would you like to open, Councillor Law?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Stephen Mam, Natalie King, thank you so much for the work that you do and for your presentation regarding the Innovate RAP today and sharing with us what has been achieved so far and the intent for what we wish to achieve in the next 12 to 18 months as we implement and deliver the Innovate RAP. I'd like to acknowledge Aunty Helena and her stories and thoughts that she shared with us this morning. And by way of speaking in support of our Innovate RAP, I really feel there is nothing else I could add to what Aunty Helena has shared with us today, and why it's so important that as a council we come together and we support our Innovate RAP. It's been a 10-year journey so far. Perhaps at the end of a 300-year journey for the traditional owners of the Sunshine Coast region. But it's a journey that needs to continue, and this is the next step on the way. And it's really important that we can implement and innovate this plan. So, what's next? Aunty Helena, I believe, shared this morning that there is a relationship that is being created and built. And in my experience, before I came to this council, the work to build those relationships is extremely hard to do. And to Stephen and your team and to the whole council of what you've achieved in 10 years to build the relationships that has enabled Aunty Helena to be with us today and share her stories and share her hopes and dreams for the future are extremely important. But we need to continue to build those relationships with the traditional owners, the Kabi Kabi people, Jinnabara people, because it's from a relationship that reconciliation can truly happen. From a relationship you can build trust. But first you need some respect. And I think we've heard a message today that we might actually be really moving forward with a relationship with respect. In the report, you ask for so little in terms of resources when there is so much that needs to be done to continue and to actually be able to implement what we wish to do, and the goals that you would like to achieve and the goals that we would like to achieve, which we will show we want to achieve by endorsing the RAP. Arnie Helena shared with us the embedded way that the culture has been put into the land and is part of the land over many thousands of years. And it's for us to go on the journey with Arnie Helena, with the Kabi Kabi and Jinnabara people, so that we can all have the benefit of those stories. So there are some really key things that we will achieve if we can implement RAP and we can endorse it and move forward today. Last month we spoke about our Sunshine Coast corporate plan, and we get to sign off on one of the items very early on in the life of that plan, which is to build, create and work with our First Nations people on this Innovate RAP. But far more importantly, we will help with employment, with education, and also economic outcomes. And that's for everybody in our community. We don't wish to single someone out, but we need to make sure that everyone benefits. And we educate everyone in the community about building these relationships and working towards reconciliation as a council, but as a whole community as well. I'd like to finish, if I may, with a comment about the artwork. And to me, this sends the signal that there is a relationship that we really can start to walk side by side on a journey as described by Arnie Helena. But it was an initiative of the Kabi Kabi people and the Jinnabara people to go into the workshop and to create the artwork that is around us in the room today and is throughout the document that will become RAP if we endorse it. But that artwork, is it artwork? It's a very important part of the story. It's showing us a way into the songlines and the stories of this country. So look at the stories and try and find the songlines that is in the artwork, because that's part of building the relationship that will be part of a wonderful, truly Sunshine Coast, where everyone is part of that culture and the future culture and the future generations. And I think it was very generous that Arnie Helena said that we might be able to be shown as a leader in this space of how to really go on a journey as one people reconciled for our future generations, so that the stories can be told, so that the truth can be told, and we can have a fantastic future. And our future generations will be able to look back and see the start of a new journey. I just would like you to think about Arnie Helena's story that she shared with us, because that's all the reasons that we need to be supporting the RAP today. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Landsberg.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks for the presentation, Stephen, and just like to acknowledge Arnie Helena's moving words. And I acknowledge we have a lot of soul searching to do as a council to acknowledge our Indigenous culture here on the coast. Growing up in my younger years in Rockhampton, I was able to reflect on a lot of experiences up there, and I can assure you it's a statewide issue in terms of how we recognise our Aboriginal and Indigenous what they've put into our broader community. And you can feel that in the passion of Auntie Helena's speech, how deep it runs. A lot of history in Caloundra, and we've acknowledged that what's happened with movement of our peoples out to Cherbourg and places out west, which back in the early days was quite a contentious issue, especially with the home around Duckholds Creek. And I feel that part of what we're doing working forward, and I'd like to just touch quickly on a process where we've just got approval for a multi-purpose facility on the foreshore at Curramundi. And one of our managers of that building facility is Brian Warner. And we'll be working with Brian to bring in young children from Cherbourg and those areas out there to enjoy the coastal lifestyle and encourage them to learn surfing, learn about the ecology, learn about wonderful things that they miss out. And to see those kids come onto the coast, which I've already experienced, and to see them sometimes put their feet in the water, in the ocean, and is a wonderful opportunity to see the benefits that we can support your Indigenous peoples. I'd just like to touch on Council's commitment to move forward with this. The RAP, as we know, has 4 different types, which is Reflect, Innovate, Stretch and Elevate. We need to move forward in terms of developing these pilot strategies and also create a stronger true partnership with our other LGAs across the coast and the state as well. We've been in discussion with obviously many representatives about finding a home for our Indigenous tourism and culture on the coast here, and I'd like to make sure that we continue with that. It's highly on the agenda, as with Councillor David Law, we've had a few discussions about it as well. And also you just touched on the award-winning educational program, and is it called Narragansawali? And is that, I've just touched on, read through your program. It's an online education platform to introduce reconciliation learning in school classrooms, and that was based and named after where Australia's Canberra office is located. So, touch on that. But yeah, happy to support this, and I look forward to engaging more on a regular basis with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Councillor Johnston?
No.
No? Okay, Councillor Suarez. My apologies.
Thank you very much, and good morning.
We're out of sequence.
Stephen, fantastic presentation. You should be just so proud of all the work that you've done, and to actually sit here and listen to what's actually been achieved. It's not just been a document that's been on a shelf, it's been implemented, and there's been some real outcomes. I also want to touch on how I feel about the way Councillor Law has conducted himself. I think he's exemplary in terms of a community leader and a councillor, and just the way that you lead through this process is fantastic. And I just want to encourage you to continually do that in the way that you have, in the spirit you have. Councillors, after hearing Auntie Helena this morning, I looked into the document and it talks about relationship building. It talks about how the Cubby peoples and Unibara peoples communicate with council. One thing that I'm not happy enough with in the document, and I'd actually like to challenge us as a council body, is to engage more as a group of councillors. When was the last time we as a group of councillors sat down and had a yarn with the traditional owners of the land in which we sit upon? When was the last time we did that? When we actually sat down, some truth-telling, heard the stories and communicated as a group of councillors. I say that because in here it talks about the leadership team, the executive leadership team. Well, I think we can do more. How about through the CEO we organise, and the Mayor, to have a formal sit-down and have a good chat about what we're doing. We talk about the biosphere, the planning scheme, we talk about arts and culture. I believe there's a bit of a gap there that we can do better on, and through Councillor Law, hopefully we can improve that relationship. Again, very, very supportive, and it might be a small thing, but congratulations also on the artwork and the ties that you've provided today. They are significant, and I'm very honoured and proud to wear this today.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Suarez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Stephen, for the report, and thank you, Auntie Helena, for the welcome to country. That was very moving. I just wanted to touch on some of the key achievements that Stephen highlighted, and I've been fortunate enough to work with Dr. Lisa Ryan on the Kids in Action program, and and just wanted to reinstate what a great program that is for our younger generation. And also really pleased to see that there's going to be some extra resources has already been allocated in terms of training for cultural burning. I know that's a great topic in the community. And I'm really looking forward to seeing the key deliverables roll out in the future. And Auntie Helena, I totally support cultural tourism and eco-tourism as a great opportunity for our region going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. If there are no further speakers, I'll go to Councillor Law to close. Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Dixon, thank you. And I like your idea. That is certainly something that we should look to do. But I'd like just to add to it. I know that when we get together, this particular group tend to do a lot of talking. If we're going to come together with the traditional owners, with the Jinnabara and with the Kabi Kabi people, we need to make sure that we do far more listening than we do talking. That will be vital. We need to listen, we need to hear. We don't need to talk so much. We have plenty of opportunity here as we represent the people of the Sunshine Coast to work and advance and progress all things Sunshine Coast. I support and endorse that, Madam CEO, if we're able to, and if our Kabi Kabi and Jinnabara people wish to. But it has to be in such a way that we listen and we go with no expectations, no requirements, except that we will listen. And I would be very, very supportive of that happening. Today, I hope with everything that you have heard, we will be able to endorse this policy, endorse our Innovate Reconciliation Plan unanimously. I look for your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillors will put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Well done, Stephen and Natalie, for your presentation. And thank you, Auntie Helena, for being with us. We're going to move to item 8.2, which is the Community Engagement Policy, and I invite Chantel Kensler to give us a presentation. Thanks, Chantel.
Good morning, Mr Mayor, councillors. Today I will be presenting to you on the draft Community Engagement Policy.
Sorry, can we just have that other mic put on? Peter, would you mind?
This one?
That's great. Thanks, Chantel.
Is that better?
That's good.
Perfect. Today I will be presenting to you the draft Community Engagement Policy for adoption. Included with this report is the draft Community Engagement Excellence in Engagement Framework and the Community Engagement Action Plan for noting. Through the strategic priorities highlighted in our corporate plan, as well as our Sunshine Coast Community Strategy 2019 to 2041, Council is committed to adopting an excellence in engagement framework to deliver best practice community engagement. Council's current position on community engagement is through the Community Engagement Policy 2009 and the supporting framework and toolkit, both developed in 2012. With the advancement of Council's commitment and aspirations towards excellence in engagement, there have been significant amounts of work and engagement undertaken over recent years to direct best practice and collaborative approaches in our engagement, culminating in the development of this suite of documents as presented today. Council is committed to the vision as outlined in our Sunshine Coast Community Strategy of Together We Thrive. The community strategy itself defines community engagement as a key method underpinning its implementation, and further goes on to commit to delivering effective community engagement that ensures the voices of our community are heard using best practice engagement approaches to inform council action and decision making, and investigates, implements and guides leading practice in innovative approaches to community engagement to address issues of local importance and the building of social capital and capacity within our communities. This is what our excellence in engagement approach strives to achieve. Our community engagement policy commitment recognises that the Sunshine Coast has a rich diversity within our local communities, and that effective and appropriate community engagement is needed and essential in making better informed decisions which are responsive to community needs. The policy recognises that community engagement must always be tailored and reflective of objectives and circumstances, including legislative obligations. The policy is underpinned by the following principles where engagement is inclusive and multimodal approaches to engagement are explored and utilised to provide opportunities for all to contribute. Also that our engagement is innovative and that creative approaches to engagement are explored and utilised to augment traditional engagement methods in an effort to build wider participation and a deeper dialogue with our community. Well planned to ensure that our engagement is proactive, tailored and coordinated. Collaborative and incorporating partnerships and information sharing opportunities into our processes for improved outcomes and ongoing learning development. And then lastly, transparent, so that we're being very clear in the community's role in influencing community engagement activities and how their input informs decisions or outcomes through closing the loop. The Supporting Community Engagement Excellence in Engagement framework actually provides a methodology to assist council staff in planning and implementing best practice community engagement activities. It does this through a 5-stage process in order to achieve the intent of the policy. Through this 5-stage process, the Excellence in Engagement framework aims to ensure the delivery of coordinated, consistent and contemporary best practice community engagement. Underpinned by the principles as reflected in the community engagement policy, the 5 stages focus on deciding when we will engage, who we will engage with and why, the building and then the implementation of the engagement plan, ensuring adaptability and agility through this time as we monitor our engagement processes, the implementation and monitoring of how we are looking at that, and the reporting and evaluation of our engagement experience for ongoing learning and improvement in the community engagement realm. Finally, the key activities to deliver on the commitment and aspirations towards community engagement and excellence in engagement are defined through the Community Engagement Action Plan under the strategic pillars of organisational coordination and capacity building and collaboration and innovation. This plan is to be delivered over the next 18 months to embed a culture of excellence in engagement across the organisation. A range of activities will be delivered through this action plan, including organisational training and ongoing learning offerings, the establishment of an internal community engagement community of practice, and also the continuation of our partnership with the University of the Sunshine Coast to continue to apply innovative approaches to our community engagement and collaboration with our community and stakeholders. So the implementation of the strategic vision of the community engagement policy, the practice methodology of the Community Engagement Excellence in Engagement framework, as well as the practical actions contained within the Community Engagement Action Plan are seen as being essential to drive a culture of excellence in engagement for our organisation and for our community, and for our community to have genuine opportunities to have a say on matters which are important to them and to our region. So in closing today, the recommendation regarding this report is up on the screen, and I thank you for your time.
Someone prepared to move, please. Councillor Law, thank you. Seconded, Councillor Dixon. Would you like to open, Councillor Law?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks very much, Chantal, for the work that you've done with our community engagement policy. I know that when I embarked over a year ago now on a campaign to end up standing here today, one of the things that really came through from our community was the need for better engagement, better communication, and better involvement in the decision-making of the Sunshine Coast Regional Council. And I think as we go forward, I would suggest that there will be others who will speak along the same lines today. For me, it's really pleasing to see a policy from 2009 being reviewed, worked on and upgraded. So thank you to yourself and the team who've been involved to get it to this point. And the fact that you've engaged so many external stakeholders as well, that we can get a very effective and meaningful community engagement policy to guide us in the coming years as we implement, as you say, the corporate plan to 2025, and all other engagement that will need to happen through the coming years as we make some very significant, important decisions. The community engagement, it involves processes, it involves all methods and means to be able to collaborate with our community, to engage with our community and get them involved in the decision making. We've got 5 very clear principles, and they should be principles that will be able to guide everything that we do. And you've mentioned them, being inclusive, which means removing any barriers that enable people who may be otherwise shut out from collaborating. Is how do we make sure that everybody, no matter where they are, who they are, that they can contribute and be a part of the decision making for the Sunshine Coast. That will lead us to be innovative about how we go to do that, to make sure we're inclusive, but also to make sure that we can use what we've learned so far since 2009, but then build on that to engage in the far better ways that we know our community are looking for. We'll plan it well, we'll have well-educated and trained staff to make sure that it's implemented well, and we'll make sure that we give really good, clear feedback. And let's also make sure that when we are collaborating that it is very meaningful. So if it's something that we just need to tell our community, hey, this is what's happening, this is what we're doing, but we really want you to know about it, let's be clear that that's what we're doing and not call it engagement. That's telling. But when we do want genuine engagement, consultation, and even involvement in decision making, let's show people how we're going to do that and the importance of doing it. And when we've completed the process, what will happen to their input and how it will inform what we do into the future. And I'm, for one, extremely encouraged that we will be able to continue to do that and enhance what we're doing because of this new policy, because of what was demonstrated through the creation in 2019 of the community strategy for the Sunshine Coast. More than 1,600 people were involved in that process. And I believe that was a process that was really at that high end of community consultation and collaboration, and the community were involved in the decision making that led to that strategy. And I do wish to highlight how that was recognised in national awards recently. So again, well done to the community team for doing that. So 2009, certainly it's time to upgrade it and update it, and I commend the new policy to the Council to shape our consultation going forward. And thank you very much, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Johnston. Sorry, Councillor Dixon. My apologies, we've got to... Yeah, no, we are. We'll get it fixed up at the break.
The Mayor's really just trying to give you an opportunity to speak today.
I promised the staff I'd look for the red light.
That's great.
Terribly.
Chantal, thank
Councillor
you.
Dixon,
Thank you for the presentation. I just thought it might be a good opportunity. You know, there's been a lot of work you've done and you've spoken to many different people in the organisation. What type of feedback did you get from the organisation when you're actually out there in the different departments? What did you learn? What could we improve on? What are the challenges? I'd just be interested to hear a little bit more on, you know, what you actually learned in developing this document.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Dixon, through you, Mr Mayor. So as you say, Councillor Dixon, there was significant amounts of consultation undertaken internally to inform not only the review of this document but the actual drafting of it. So we engaged early to make sure that input was actually informed the drafting. So from an organisational perspective, as Councillor Law has identified, there was recognition that our policy is outdated and in need of review. There was also, similar to the community sentiment, a real appetite for being able to look at innovative ways of engaging, and I think particularly following on from the impacts of the pandemic, you know, how we actually reach audiences and how we get to hard to reach audiences. That has been something that other areas of the organisation have really requested some further support and guidance with, and something through that inclusive principle that we wish to be able to enhance and move forward in doing better with our practice. Other things that were discussed through that feedback were around minimum standards, I guess, when we come to legislation in terms of our engagement, but then also noting that there is the ability to actually go above and beyond what that minimum standard is to ensure that we are hearing from the voices and the views of the broader community in the most representative way. And I guess finally, it was really just shown from the organisation that they were very appreciative that we were looking into engagement and reviewing this position and then providing the support around in terms of the capacity building and the coordination there so that we could enhance that from our operational procedures too.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Mr Mayor, a good opportunity where the rubber hits the road is the planning scheme. So we're about to embark on a pre-discussion with the community around the Sunshine Coast planning scheme or the new planning scheme. I think this is perfect timing because this document really focuses our efforts on, well, is it meaningful engagement? Are we actually out there to listen? We heard this morning about talking a lot, and we do. We talk a lot because we've got a lot to talk about. But with a planning scheme, you really need to be asking the question of the people who live here. What do you expect for the future? What do you want your region to look like? How will that look into the future? You know, the most important thing I think we can focus on today is actually trying to get the youth involved. One thing that I believe is difficult and has been difficult in the past is getting younger people, school students, university students involved in the future, because the decisions that we're making here today are going to be the ones that they experience and live with into the future. And I've heard the Mayor talk about this numerous times. For Mr Repray in the back seat here, the planning scheme, we need to make sure we really focus on getting out into the region and talking to as many people as we can. But it also hits home, Mr Mayor, you know, when we're out doing project news, and it might be a footpath project. A recent example in Budrum, we spent about $270,000 on a 1.3 kilometre footpath. And I learned a very good lesson from Councillor Maria recently. And we put a project news out and we put it out to the street, so both sides of the road, and we let the community know in Budrum we're doing a footpath project. And I got all these objections in. The amount of objections I got on a footpath I've never seen before. People petitioning me, ringing me, emailing, saying you've got to stop the footpath. We don't want it here because we can no longer park illegally on the verge if you build a footpath. Where we're parking at the moment, it will be really illegal to do it unsafe. Maria said, why don't you actually go and ask the pathway users? And I said, well, I am, Maria. I'm asking the people who live there. She said, no, you're not. Go out and actually talk to your community, the school students who will traverse that location safely to school, the people who will ride their bikes, walk their dogs. And it made me think we've been doing this for as long as I've been in council, where you just talk to the directly impacted residents, but you miss the user base in the community. Something I've learnt, and hopefully we can take on. It might be such a small example, but too often are we just focused on what we see right in front of us, we forget the broad community. Thank you again, and I'm really looking forward to testing this year.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor Suarez.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Chantal, for the report. I really am pleased to see this presented to Council. I think it's leaps and bounds above what perhaps was there before. I just have a couple of, one question and perhaps one point, and that is in terms of when we're planning our community engagement, looking at our time frames. Often we work from, you know, the date that it needs to be finalised or constructed and work backwards, and then community consultations scheduled in just before that final completion. And in the document we talk about monitoring as we go along, and sometimes we don't now allow enough time to go back and review either the project or how we're doing our community engagement before that final completion date. So maybe just a flag that time frame needs to perhaps have enough time in it if we need to change direction. Then my question is just the evaluation. In the Excellence in Engagement Framework, Appendix 6 talks about the evaluation planning template, and I love that because it's how do we learn from what we've done. But I just want to understand who would be doing that evaluation. Would it be that particular project team? Would it be someone outside of that project team? How do we get sort of an independent, unbiased evaluation of that consultation?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, thank you very much, Councillor Suarez, and that's a great question. So for us in the implementation of this policy and framework, we will be looking to still hold a decentralised model of engagement in terms of the organisation and the various business areas delivering their own engagement projects, but being able to actually support that through the ongoing capacity building and coordination initiatives associated with the action plan too. So with myself and my team, so with community development and engagement, there is an ability for us to support, guide, lead and advise in these spaces. So that evaluation planning template is something that's actually put forward within the framework for the various business areas to think at the forefront of their planning, so not retrospectively. We're really starting to look at what is it that we're seeking from our engagement and how do we know that that's been successful or effective. And that's something that in terms of going through the various templates in that framework that the community development and engagement team would be able to assist with and help support the organisation through that. But also likewise, this framework is something that's available for consultants that might be engaged as well in various engagement projects. So it does go across the board.
Thank you. And if I may speak to the motion, Mr Mayor. Prior to coming into council, my perception of council's engagement was it was very hit and miss. There's some examples of excellent community consultation and then some examples of very poor community consultation. And then coming into council, one thing that's blown me away is how much council does in terms of what it delivers to the community and how much engagement goes along with that, from the very small projects to the very large ones. I raised areas where I believe that there was room for improvement, and I'm really grateful that that was listened to and taken into account. And the term meaningful community engagement doesn't mean anything unless there's some real action that goes behind that. And I'd just like to say that I think that this policy framework and action plan really addresses a lot of those things to deliver that outcome of meaningful community engagement. And some of the things in the document are allowing for the additional staff to guide and facilitate, using technology and partnerships to create a community engagement tool, and adopting the framework of International Association for Public Participation as the guiding principles, and focusing on the outcomes which you've just spoken about there, thinking about what it is that we want to achieve at the outset to make better informed decisions here in council. Some of the issues that I raised when I was talking to the team, which has now been addressed in this document, and I'd just like to marry those up. One was ensuring that those who should be consulted are consulted, and you addressed that in stage 2, step 5 of understanding who to engage with. No crowding the consultation period with learning, and this is particularly critical for the example that Christian's raised, the planning scheme, where projects involve large volumes of information that may be complicated and technical in nature and will take up a lot of those days of consultation in just trying to understand the information, let alone make an informed submission. And then figuring out we got it wrong too late. And that's stage 4, step 12, monitor the progress. So hallelujah to that. Who isn't there that should be and why was one of the clear directions in that one. And then clear and detailed reporting to understand how their contribution has informed the decision, and that's in stage 5, step 13, report and evaluate. And you've gone above and beyond some of the issues that I've raised, and you've also addressed providing motivation to encourage participation. Why is it relevant to the community to participate? And that's in Appendix 4 of the engagement framework as well. So I'd love that this is acknowledged that it's a flexible process and council can learn as it goes on, doing more community engagement throughout the community. And I just want to congratulate the team for the work that you've done, and I'm very happy with this report and very happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. If there are no further speakers, I'm going to go to Councillor Law to close.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Our community has told us that they want to see the council be more visible in our community and to provide a diversity of ways to engage. I'm looking forward to seeing the partnership between the council and the community be strengthened through the implementation of the new policy and framework, and that we are able to undertake and recognise effective community engagement. By working in partnership with the community, we can work together to create a region that is inclusive, connected, and where there are opportunities for everybody. So thank you, and I endorse and encourage support of this new policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillors will put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Thanks for the presentation, Chantal.
Thank you.
We'll move to item 8.3, which is the Honey Farm Sport and Recreation Precinct Master Plan. And I'll invite Nathan Walker-Edwards, Craig Connolly and Kerry White to join us for the presentation. Thank you, Nathan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, everyone. I'm here to present the Honey Farm Sport and Recreation Precinct Master Plan. So just to start off with, to provide some site context, the site is around 70 hectares in size. It was purchased back in 2011 for the purpose of sport and recreation. It is zoned for sport and recreation use. It has frontages to Honey Farm Road, which will end up being a link to Palmview, and Westaway Road to the south, which runs parallel to Caloundra Road. The site is flood impacted. There is a higher portion of land on the southern zone, and that's been deemed suitable for the development of formal sport and recreation use. There was some vegetation on site in the main lot. That was a small amount of regrowth, but there is some remnant vegetation on what you see as lot 494. That will be retained, and we do actually have quite extensive replantings on this site as part of the wetland system, so there's about 10 hectares of replanting here. It was formerly used as sugarcane, honey production and for grazing uses as well. So some of the elements of the concept plan that we've include sport for regional cricket and football. We are looking at a hardcore precinct there. We haven't determined the use of that as yet. It will include a criterion course of 1.8 kilometres, and that will include a beginner's course and an intermediate course as well. We are proposing a disc golf course introduction to this site for a regional disc golf course and an indoor sports centre. With regards to the recreation elements, we are looking at youth plaza type activities, parkour, pump tracks, all abilities, playground, nature-based theme parks, and a flexible informal kick and throw space. With regards to events, we have included a space that of up to 5 hectares, which allows capacity for around 30,000 patrons for those events to take place. Fingers crossed this is going to work for me. Here's the precinct fly-through. Thanks, Matt, and just watch that volume too. So as we head down towards from the south to north, on your right you'll see that there's the rectangular-based fields for soccer. So at the bottom corner there you've got 4 dedicated soccer fields. To the north of that you've got a multi-use field with cricket and soccer. And in the centre of the ovals in the fields, you've got a regional clubhouse facility. That can accommodate media spaces and drug testing facilities and so forth. So it is at that higher level to support those high level events. Around the back here, this is to the northern end now, you've got the criterion track, so you can see those couple of smaller loops in there that I was talking about, as well as quite a significant wetland storage capacity here of around 35,000 cubic metres, which is to offset any flood impacts that this site might have to adjacent properties. So now we're coming in through those wetlands to the north with some nature trails. Excuse me. In the centre here we have dedicated that space to open event space. It is purposely meant to be quite flexible in there. And now we're just heading back towards those formalised fields with the oval. You will see there's extensive parking throughout the whole precinct. We do have 780 dedicated formalised car parks, as well as some informal parking opportunities throughout the site. You will note most of those fields, if not all, are lit. Now that will be a staged approach, that lighting. And now we're heading over towards the west, where you'll see that we have included a lot of the recreational elements, so the parkour, hardcourt precinct, indoor sports centre, and pub track for kids and adults. And then to the south of that, you'll see that there's just that informal kick and throw space. And this is just a close-up of that youth activity space I was talking about before. This is definitely the trend. Kids want those adventure-based experiences now, not just your standardised swing in a playground. If we can stop there, that's pretty much. Okay, so the officer recommendation is to receive and note the report and to endorse the Honey Farm Sport and Recreation Precinct Master Plan. Now we are asking for an additional allocation of $6 million between the period of 2026 to 2030 in the Capital Works program to support stage 2 deliverables of this master plan.
Someone to move? Councillor Cox. Seconded, Councillor Babarowski. Would you like to open, Councillor Cox?
Yes, certainly, Mr. Mayor. I will be actually moving an alternate recommendation, which hopefully is on screen. As you can see, it's only very minor, but it refers to item C for the additional allocation of the monies and just shortening that time frame up. So I need to probably get a seconder for that particular.
Yep, check with Councillor Babarowski, who was the seconder. Happy with that? Carry on. Please open.
Thanks very much, Nathan, for your presentation here today. That fly-through, I think, is incredible. It just shows the complexity of the site, but also the individual elements that the community will get to experience from the formalised sport through to the recreation precinct. So I think it's an incredible piece of work that our staff have done, and if you could just please convey my sincere thanks on behalf of the community of Division 3. I think Kerry White, Ben Stevens, Craig Connolly, as well as yourself and your team, very much appreciated. Councillors, what a fantastic opportunity this is. This particular precinct, located in that sort of western Caloundra area, but servicing two of probably the largest communities that we have, greenfield communities, being in Aura and Harmony. And I should probably point out that up until the last election, this was actually Division 1 territory, so Councillor Babarowski would probably have been moving this particular item. But I actually want to thank you for your involvement over the last few years, because this was previously Division 1, and I know that you, myself, formerly Councillor Dwyer when he was Division 2, and now with Councillor Landsberg, sat down having a bit of control over this particular project. And what a project it is. It's certainly vast. It's a very exciting one. And with this particular item, you would note in the report, there's about $20 million committed in the deliverables for stage 1. That is not an insignificant amount of money. It's a 75-hectare site. As we've heard, it does have a lot of constraints, especially in that northern area with some flooding impacts, and working through and working out the flood modelling and what best can be accommodated in terms of those opportunities on site has been quite difficult for the team. I'm really looking forward to stage 2, which is where item C comes into consideration, and that is the criterium track that we heard of, the hardcourt precinct, the youth plaza, some of those fitness trails, the disc golf, and the substantial dog off leash area, which will be well and truly needed for those two emerging communities. Councillors, last week you probably heard me question the report on a couple of items, that being the expected deliverables for stage 1 as part of that $20 million package. Also around the traffic and transport issues. but as well as the naming proposal. So I'm quite satisfied with the responses from last week, and I think that our community will certainly benefit from this particular project. So I didn't want to speak too much about it, but only that it's very exciting, and I look forward to any questions that the councillors may have.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Councillor Dixon.
Yes, thank you. It's pretty unusual for a councillor to be this excited about a project outside of their area, but for those who are playing along at home, this is very close to Harmony and Palmview. I understand there's a condition around 2025 that puts a southern link from Palmview and Harmony all the way down to Caloundra Road. And whilst I didn't see that indicative road link mentioned within the document or picked up on those visualisations, it's only a few minute drive. So the main links you've got Claymore Road, Peter Crosby Way, you've got a link that's going to start soon to the Bruce Highway. You'll go north into Spring Hill Drive, and the southern link actually links up to Caloundra Road around the racecourse, which is fantastic, and so it should. But there's an enormous benefit here for the 16,500 people that will call Palmview home. Although we will get some community facilities which are currently under construction, this is enormous. This is not just your local facility, this is region-wide. And the suggestion of, the pump tracks and the open space and dog parks and whatnot, the geographical catchment for this area, you're going to pick up so many new Sunshine Coast residents into the future. I'm really excited, and I fully support Councillor Cox's amendment to bring this forward. We need to get this developed as quick as we can. We know the population is increasing, Caloundra South, Palmview. There will be obviously growth in and around the enterprise corridor. People are going to need open space, and this is the best site for it, and it's very, very easy to get to. After the state government do some work on their state road infrastructure, Mr. Mayor. Fantastic project, Nathan, and congrats on this one.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor O'Prey.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you, well done and congratulations to all the staff for putting this together over such a long period of time, particularly Nathan's team, Kerry's team, Greg, all your teams. Amazing job putting it together, particularly the community consultation engagement. It's been exceptional and very relevant to the item we had earlier, so thank you and congratulations again. Mr. Mayor, the presentation today was probably one of the best we've seen. I think that fly-through, they say if a picture tells 1,000 words, that fly-through told 1,000,000 to me. I think I'm a very visual person. For me personally, that was an excellent presentation. Thanks again, Nathan. Councillors, soccer and cricket are two of our biggest mass participation sports on the Sunshine Coast. We've got all ages, juniors, seniors, open, masters, men's, women's, boys and girls, all participate in cricket and in soccer. And we are desperate need for more, particularly rectangular fields across the coast. So to see this come today is just very, very exciting for the entire region and not just the southern end of the coast. I think most of us would agree that our sporting facilities are one of our Sunshine Coast Council's greatest assets as well, because what it does is sports clubs particularly bring together a lot of other things other than sport. Mental health for men for many years has been dealt with in sports clubs. The surf clubs, the footy clubs, the cricket clubs, the soccer clubs, that's where men the last 100 years have been dealing with their mental health issues. So it's a very important part of the fabric of our society to try and enable and engage more sports clubs to come out of the ground here in the Sunshine Coast. And the open space opportunities here are excellent. All right, we've got the water bodies, we've got the open spaces, the park spaces, the event spaces, which may need a little bit of tweaking because the event spaces created most of the attention in the consultation period for me particularly, but that's in stages 2 and 3, I believe. So we've got vast opportunities there with the open space usage as well, particularly the water bodies. I note that already in Kawana we have the remote control yachts and remote control boat clubs down there. There's a great opportunity for that to expand. And Councillor Cox, Division 3 is without question now the sports division of the Sunshine Coast. So very, very supportive of that. One thing I've got actually I'd like to talk about pump tracks. Pump tracks as well, I've made a special note about that. It's pump tracks particularly right across the region. If you don't know what a pump track is, it's an up and down undulating bitumen usually gravity-fed track for both skateboards and BMXs and anything that can move like a scooter or a skateboard. They're very, very popular right across the region. The Sunshine Coast has got a couple of pretend ones, but we don't have a really big one. We need a really half-decent pump track here on the Sunshine Coast, and Nathan and I have already discussed that, and I'd really like to see that happen in either this side or maybe in the northern area of the Sunshine Coast. The dog off leash area and other future opportunities. Again, looking at recreational use and land use in the area. I know that's in stage 3, but certainly like to see more of that engagement too with the community to see whether we want to particularly put dog off leash areas around cricket and soccer fields. It's always been a little bit contentious at times, but that might need a little bit more consultation as we go forward. But most importantly, Mr Mayor, I think sports clubs, and I touched on it earlier, sports clubs are very much the social fabric of the Sunshine Coast. It's all about supporting health, well-being, fitness, socialising, and most importantly, bringing people together. So I congratulate you again, and thank you very much. I'll be all support this day.
Thank you, Councillor O'Prey. Councillor Landsberg.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, just to follow up on Councillor O'Prey's comments there. This project obviously follows on from the ELS, Environmental Livability Strategy in 2019. And the need for a facility like this is obviously acknowledged. We have just under 3,000 active members of Reserve 1,000. It's actually at capacity. They're turning people away to use the Caloundra Indoor Stadium. The fields there are at capacity. So it's great to see Council acknowledge our emerging communities and the impact it's going to be on, especially Caloundra South. Obviously the use of a couple of, 2 cricket ovals, 4 soccer fields, shared clubhouse, which we successfully do at Caloundra Indoor Stadium, which is a great representation that hopefully we can do a similar project out there with that clubhouse. The use for the large outdoor events as well, which we know that CMF are screaming for better areas to run events and festivals at the moment. And also the criteria in the bike track, and with 780 car parks accommodating, the need for car parks at these large facilities is definitely acknowledged. The opportunity as well, which I spoke last week about the way to revegetate this site as well. There will be some clearing, but a lot of that is just regrowth. So that will give us a great chance to look at better established vegetation out there. And also just to touch on our district, the catchment, we are going to see a projected growth of Urban A, which is the catchment of Caloundra South, of 126% from 58,000 in 2016 numbers to well over 131,000 people by 2014. So the population growth in Urban A, with a share of the Sunshine Coast population growth from 19 to 26% by 2041. Massive increase of numbers, and obviously this project will hopefully accommodate one of our biggest needs here on the Sunshine Coast is sport and recreation, and especially for men's mental health. And the other thing as well is maybe being nominated as a preferred Olympic venue, the rise in our non-traditional sports as well, which have been acknowledged, and especially our women's competitions in rugby league, football, AFL and rugby union, and obviously the needs to accommodate different genders in our sports as well. So yeah, a great project and look forward to supporting it.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Councillor Babarowski.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Councillors, the community is going to love this space. One of the reasons I was very pleased to second it, and thank you, Councillor Cox, for acknowledging we were really all passionate as a team back in 2019 when we really got stuck into the master planning of this. And Councillors, the thing I'm most proud of is that it wasn't a hard journey to turn it from a sports precinct to a sport and recreation precinct where the recreation wasn't token. The recreational side of this is fabulous. It will be a great space for the southern end of the region, certainly for all of the region, but the southern end of the region did have a fairly significant deficit. And the fact that this is a big area really means that you're going to have to engage with those adjoining communities to activate it. But I'm absolutely confident that the planning that obviously started back in prior to 2011, but really sort of started to form a clearer picture in the 2014 planning scheme and then the 2019 commencement of the master plan. All along the way, it's been a new vision to make sure that this was a really fantastic recreation offer as well as a sports facility offer. So I'm delighted, absolutely delighted. I'm very confident that the greenfield communities as well as the existing communities will really use this space. It's complex, it's got multi layers to it. And I really think that we took on some of the harder bits. It's easy to sometimes let those harder bits out where you've got wetlands, and that's quite difficult to do that. So again, I can only again compliment the team for making sure this was a sort of a more sophisticated vision of sports open space to be sport and recreation. And I can certainly commend this and hope that you support it wholeheartedly.
Thank you, Councillor Babrowski. Councillor Law.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Nathan, thanks for the great report and the information about the master plan. I don't want to be repetitive, but I've got a couple of questions, if I may. I've heard quite a lot of commentary about the connecting roads and making sure that people can get here. It's going to be a region, almost region-wide, possibly it will be region-wide, opportunity for sport, recreation and leisure. What I didn't hear was the recognition that it's noted in the master plan that we will consider the active transport strategy. Just looking for some encouragement that we'll do more than consider it, but we will make sure that no matter who is building the road networks to connect to all of our settlements, that there'll actually be, there will be cycleways, there will be alternate methods of transport other than just a road and car parking. And obviously that the car parking allows for buses to use the space. And have we considered connectivity through the public transport network?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So you're absolutely correct, Councillor Law, that in the initial phases of the master plan, we were considering cycle and active transport options to this site. Due to its isolated location, it wasn't deemed impossible. It will just it seems to be a little challenging to get those public transport connections to this site. The CAMCOS corridor does go close to this site, not adjacent, but it does go close to this site. We do have, we have built the internal transport network to accommodate those buses, those larger buses. So they will be bringing teams, obviously, and we have bus set down areas as well, built into that layout. We also have considered the cycle network going from Kawana Way Link Road into the site. There is a small easement, if you want to call it that, that is part of this portion of the land that we can use for that purpose as well. So that will connect us back into Caloundra. To be honest, I don't know what the design options are with that link to the north through to Palmview, if there are cycleways and pathways considered for that space, but certainly we'd be advocating for that.
That's great, thank you. Yeah, if I could encourage you to continue to pursue those cycleway connections. I appreciate the difficulty perhaps around public transport, but if you're talking about an area for recreation, for leisure, for sport, then one way to enhance that is you actually get there without using some form of motorised transport. So really encourage that to continue, please. My next question is around the, Councillor Landsberg mentioned the growth that will be happening in the south of Caloundra, and I just want to make sure that we're recognising that that will include significant growth in the multicultural area of our community. We already have 150 different nationalities represented on the coast. Have we, or please can we make sure that we consider that cohort of people when we're looking at the sport? Clearly, depending where you look around the world, soccer and cricket feature very heavily and are internationally recognised. Can we make sure that we are providing suitable facilities that will encourage multicultural people to want to be engaging and participating in whatever clubs and activities that happen there? And either can we consider that, or has that already been included?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Once again, you're correct that the two sports that we have chosen for this site are internationally renowned as being inclusive of multicultural communities. Soccer is a world sport. Cricket is certainly an Asian, Indian, Pakistan, but also a worldwide sport. So with regards to the design of this facility, as I mentioned last week, we're certainly looking at how the clubhouse can be designed as a community hub, not just a sports hub, but an inclusive community hub. So we are looking at those aspects in the next phase. We're looking at that in more detail, so it'll certainly be front of mind that we're looking to include as many people in our community as possible in that design.
Thank you. No other questions.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Johnston.
Oh, long last.
A couple of warm-ups.
As sure as Councillor Dixon.
Well, it says Councillor Dixon, but I know it's Councillor Johnston.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you very much, Nathan. This is an excellent report. I'm pleased on behalf of the inland communities and the people who live in Division 5 to support this, because this is going to be a wonderful improvement in the overall sports and recreation facility for the entire local authority, but also for the people in the inland. And you know, people shouldn't lose. We often get accused of allowing developments to occur in certain areas and that sort of thing, but without the development of harmony and without the development of aura, this wouldn't be here, this facility. So, you know, although there may be some negatives with growth on the coast, at the same time, there flow benefits such as this. And I'd like to thank the councillors and the staff who've been active in this area and presented this plan to council. And also, I believe that a significant amount of the funding will come from LGIP, which is Local Government Infrastructure Plan. And once again, without development of those people who live in those areas, this wouldn't have been achieved, because we couldn't have afforded it to start with. So it was the purchase and the development of the site. The next thing is, I'd like to make sure that everybody understands that in the further stages of Harmony, that there will be a connection from Harmony, so in other words, Chancellor Park Harmony, through down to this complex and to the Caloundra Road. So, and that will take some of the pressure off in other areas when people would have had to go in a roundabout way to get there. So, well done everybody, and I look forward to it being completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Johnston. There are no further speakers. I'll go to Councillor Cox to close.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Thank you, councillors, for your participation in the item here today. It's great to hear some of the comments and especially some of the questions. So it's really just further acknowledgement of the support that we have for this particular project. In fact, actually, when we went to community consultation late last year, over 84% endorsed the draft master plan as it was proposed back then. So I'm not going to harbour on too much, but look forward to your support here this morning.
We'll put the motion to the vote. Councillors, all those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll press on to the next item before we take a break, and that is 8 point. Thank you for that, Nathan, Kerry. The next item, 8.4, is the Festive Season Program Review, and welcome Janine and Claudia for a presentation. Thanks, Janine.
Good morning, Mr Mayor and councillors. This report seeks endorsement and funding for delivery of a new model festive season program. The festive season program, comprising of Christmas, New Year's Eve and Australia Day infrastructure and events, was reviewed to identify the optimal future delivery model. The review included benchmarking, research of trends and data, as well as consultation with community, councillors and other stakeholders. The key findings from the review have guided the recommendations, and they include a strong desire from the community to organise and attend festive events, the belief that festive decorations are for community pride and need impact both during the day and night, an average 45% demand gap for community festive funding since 2014, demand for Christmas and New Year's Eve celebrations of Australia Day events, and an expectation of smaller localised events during Christmas in contrast to larger and more impactful events for New Year's Eve. The recommended future festive season program includes significantly increased council infrastructure, Christmas infrastructure across the region with community consultation opportunities, consolidation of historical council events into one regional Christmas event, the establishment of a multi-year community grant with funding to support local community organised events across the region, New Year's Eve Mooloolaba to be redesigned while maintaining a safety focus, and fireworks to be delivered by council at three locations across the coast. Australia Day events to receive $6,000 into the new events grants category for community-led events. Today we are seeking endorsement of the report's recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Janine. Someone to move? Councillor Law. Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Babarowski. Hold on a minute, I've run out of paper. Would you like to open, Councillor Law?
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Janine, for yourself and Claudia. And a little bit of a theme for us today around community consultation and engagement. I think this piece of work was one of the first that I got involved with as a councillor around consultation and engagement. And we'd just like to remind myself and remind all of us that that was going on during a period as we came out of the mega bushfires of 2019-20 that had such a disruptive impact and created a lot of conversations around should we be having fireworks. Then COVID happened, then we were consulting. So my first experience really was very good. It was quite insightful and probably fairly unique and different to what's gone before because of those two nation-changing events that I've just mentioned. So that was fascinating, and thank you for the reports, the conversations that we had during that time. Thank you very much. And I think what we've captured here today is showing us a really positive way forward of how do we work with the people of the Sunshine Coast to celebrate that important time of the year through the summer. I won't go over what you've already mentioned, those key points of what did we learn, what should we do, but we'd just like to highlight how one of the things that's really important is how far do we travel? How far do the people wish to travel to get to an event? And as a response to that, the free community event at the Maroochy Botanical Bushlands, that's right in the heart of the coast, very well connected to the road networks and so on, and methods and means of how to get there, and a 10-day event for the public. Absolutely great response. And also looking to, you mentioned the grants program, always oversubscribed, but that's the means that enable the community to put together the events that the community want. So it's, when it comes to those events the community want to attend, it's not that it will all be provided and some may come, some won't. It will be a funding mechanism that allows the community to determine what they want to do and get the support of council through those funding grants. So it's nice to see that that is being enhanced and made a lot stronger to get those community events happening, which we learned is what the community wants to do. So I wish to endorse and seek the support from council today to take our festive planning and the festive future in the summertime and work with the Sunshine Coast residents to provide what they're looking for. Thank you very much, and I recommend the report.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Councillor Dixon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, it was really good to be part of the full council workshop on the 15th of February. I think we had a bit of a workshop to go through that. Great to be involved in that. I fully support the removal of the small $5,000 grants that a few of the divisions had. I know my community didn't subscribe to that, and I know that money can be better spent in a full program, so fully endorse that. Janine, I just want to say thank you. I know there's 16 plus new banners going to go up in Sippy Downs and Palmview, obviously sort of new communities there, and just appreciate that staff recognise those new communities early. We really appreciate that. I just thought it might be worth asking you the question, because I don't want us to just rush over today because it's really important. In the strategy, it talks about the removal of the trees from the Nambour and the Caloundra chambers, and obviously doing it at the new City Hall. Could you just walk the public through what we intend to do at Caloundra and Nambour if the trees are removed? You know, what sort of tier treatments those centres will have. noting that our staff will still be in both centres to a smaller degree.
Through you, Mr Mayor. The treatments at Caloundra and at Nambour are administration buildings. There won't be anything at the administration buildings per se, but in the area, both of those areas, the infrastructure has been increased. So there will be an increase in the visual impact, but it won't be in a tree in front of a administration building. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Dixon. Councillor O'Prey.
Janine, thanks very much for this presentation today, and as you're aware, I've been heavily involved with this for many, many years, and I've probably been one of the biggest critics too at times, and I think what you've delivered here today is excellent. We're well and truly on track, and what I'd like to point out is the fact that if we're going to be reducing the Christmas infrastructure in formats of like trees and the like, I love the way that we've increased the banners from 340 to about 450 or something like that. As you're driving around the Sunshine Coast at Christmas time, I think the majority of the population of the Sunshine Coast see the banners, where the majority of the Sunshine Coast don't see the actual Christmas tree. So I think moving forward, the drive-by of the banners, the feeling of Christmas really is integral to the Sunshine Coast. So I'd like to see us, over time, maybe even increase that more. But other than that, all in all, very happy with it. Well done, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Prey. Councillor Babarowski.
Oh, thank you, Mr Mayor. Long journey. I think we really started to formalise our approach, councillors, around 2014. We've learned a lot. This is the sort of program that you really do engage very well with the community, and I think we have, and we've learned that essentially we needed to review the program. So I'm very pleased to be seconding and supporting this new program and the different approach. I'd like to say to Councillor Dixon, look, no trees will be harmed in the removal of the trees at Nambour and Caloundra. They were only Christmas trees, they weren't real trees. Look, I think this will be far more successful. We're going to learn more. This possibly isn't the end point yet, but I think we'll learn a hell of a lot through this revised program. Happy to support it.
Thank you, Councillor Babarowski. Councillor Natali.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and Janine, thank you for the work that you've done. Just a question, the fireworks at Mooloolaba at midnight, will that still go on?
Yes, Councillor. Mooloolaba will have the only midnight fireworks in the region.
Yeah, that's great. I reserve my opinion in that I think Mooloolaba itself may not necessarily be what most people would hope will be a major festive celebration calling in the new year. Over the years it has been an attractor of many people, including young people, and we've had issues in Mooloolaba and it's been quite difficult to manage. And I think over the years what's happened is that that's sort of constrained the ability of the event to actually shine, and I think the focus of trying to deal with safety has taken away from the ability to be able to have entertainment. And really, I have seen the event go down in terms of the amount of things for young people, the rides that we used to have, the sideshow alley type rides have disappeared. There's a lot of children entertainment that used to happen that were great. It just, over the years that I've taken my children there, I just felt that I had seen that we haven't really been able to grow that experience. I do know the challenges that we've had, trying to balance that. I'm prepared to go into this new year to see how it pans out, and we'll just hopefully be able to review this if we get feedback from the community. And it'd be really good to be able to do some of that consultation with the community when these events are happening, just to see whether we're actually on the mark, to see how we can constantly improve. And it would be best to do that at the time when the people are at these events, to be able to survey them and get that feedback before and after that event. I am concerned that the free buses that we used to use to bring people into Mooloolaba has now been taken away. And again, that'll be just a watching brief for me. And I hope that we can come up with some strategies of being able to move people in and out of that area safely. I do welcome the opportunity to be able to sit within the main framework of working up to New Year's Eve, and as a local councillor, I certainly welcome that opportunity to be part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Tolley. Councillor Cox.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Chair. Reviews are interesting because obviously the community is used to a certain type of programming, but I am going to be supporting this here today because I think the review, which takes into consideration Christmas Day, New Year's Eve, as well as Australia Day, it gives our community an opportunity to experience new programming, as well as potentially an array of new events for them to attend. So I thank you for the report and all the work that's gone into this over many, many months, and I'll be supporting you here today.
Thank you. Councillor Babarowski, a question?
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just on the notion that free buses were part of this review program, could you clarify whether free buses were considered or not considered, or in fact perhaps explain maybe that there are free buses as part of the new year?
Through you, Mr Mayor. Council itself used to put on free buses across the region during the festive period. They stopped doing that approximately 4 to 5 years ago. New Year's Eve used its operational budget to maintain the free buses. The state government provides free buses from 9 p.m. onwards, so that will definitely remain. The event also provides park and ride buses from the University in Caloundra and the Sunshine Plaza for families particularly to park, jump on a free bus and come down. So those will still be operational. It just won't be the across the region free buses to get in. So there will still be lots of transport options at economical rates.
There are no further speakers. I'll go to Councillor Law to close.
Thank you. No further comments.
Thank you, councillors. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, Janine and Claudia. Councillors, I think that's 11:02. Time for a break. Can we be back at 11:20 sharp, please? Up to item 8.5, which is the Caloundra Administration Building repurposing, and I invite Deborah Robinson, along with Ben and Zuzi, to give us a presentation. Thank you.
Make sure that's on. Our purpose of today's presentation is to provide a quick background on the Caloundra Centre activation project, and also provide information in relation to the proposed Caloundra Administration Building repurposing. Project overview, design brief, feasibility and due diligence, design response, and to discuss a number of project issues. Just by way of background, in March 2017, Council adopted the Caloundra Centre Master Plan. The purpose of the master plan is to provide an integrated approach to the future development of the wider Caloundra area, providing a stimulus to both public and private investment. Council's operational plan identifies the implementation of the high priority projects, and Caloundra Centre Activation Project as being one of those. Early in 2018, the Caloundra Centre Project Control Group was established to guide the activation of central Caloundra, particularly in relation to the future use of council-zoned buildings, and the longer-term coordination of traffic, public transport and open space connections in the core area. There are 5 priority areas in respect of this particular project. They are the Town Square redevelopment, so that's to redevelop council-owned sites, to create a new Town Square, community facilities and mixed-use development. New road network improvements in and around this particular location of Caloundra. Otranto Avenue Street Park, so to connect Otranto Avenue to Bullcock Street, to Bullcock Beach and beyond. At the ordinary meeting on the 20th of June 2019, Council provided resolutions and endorsement for an approach on the way forward, in particular in respect of this project, and provided key directions for the enhancement of this project going forward. So first of all was the endorsement of an urban design concept plan, approval in principle to the establishment of a new Caloundra library within the Caloundra Administration Building, this building you're currently sitting in, approval to the size and location of a new Caloundra Regional Gallery, agreement in principle to the sale of the current library site, and also endorsement of the staging of the particular project. In terms of the Caloundra Administration Building repurposing, which is what we're here for today and to discuss today, the major refurbishment of the Event Centre in 2019 was an important first step in the vision for the Caloundra Centre area. The establishment of a new contemporary Caloundra District Library in the heart of the Community and Creative Hub precinct, along with other proposed uses within the Caloundra activation area, will play a significant role in increasing activation of the centre and providing a focus for the local and broader Sunshine Coast community, and provide a catalyst for private sector investment in the Caloundra Centre area. The existing Caloundra Library, which is located just adjacent to Felicity Park, is currently 1,120 square metres in area, of which less than 800 square metres is actually publicly accessible space. The library services a current catchment population of around 63,000 people and attracts approximately 305,000 visitations per year. It is the busiest library in Council's library network. The existing library does not meet state guidelines and recommendations in terms of floor area, service levels or embellishment for the current or projected catchment population. The current library does not meet benchmark standards for a modern contemporary library compared to other libraries throughout regional and city centres in Australia. The initial project brief for the repurposing of this building into a Caloundra library envisaged that this library would provide a district library in accordance with the functional and sizing requirements informed by a detailed library brief, which is attached to your report. A customer service centre integrated with the library on the ground floor. Community meeting space of approximately 600 square metres, and general office workspaces and meeting rooms, including councillor offices for councillors for Division 1, 2 and 3. In December 2019, Council appointed Wilson Architects as the principal consultant to lead a team of sub-consultants to undertake preliminary feasibility and design for the Caloundra Administration Building repurposing project. The objective of this commission was to undertake due diligence, investigations for the repurposing project, provide an architectural response to the proposed use, and identify the spatial requirements that need to be incorporated into a new contemporary library of the 21st century. The Caloundra Centre Administration Building repurposing, feasibility and due diligence touched on all of these particular areas. It examined this existing building and identified the technical constraints and opportunities involved in repurposing the Caloundra Administration Building for the uses I've just talked to. The investigation scope included building certification, structural, civil, electrical, hydraulic, fire, mechanical, communications, vertical transport and sustainability. Given the age of this building, it does not meet current Building Code of Australia or National Construction Code requirements, including current energy efficiency standards. In addition, the building does have a history of structural issues. It has a floor deflection, which has resulted in a lessening of the floor load capacity of this particular building. The proposed major refurbishment of the building will require assessment and certification in accordance with current standards and codes. Initial due diligence and feasibility indicates that the repurposing of this building into a district library and other uses is the most feasible option. It should be noted, councillors, that whether this building is repurposed for the purposes of a library and other ancillary facilities or not, the building does have to be brought up to new standards and current requirements under the Building Code. So in terms of the library areas and the areas to be accommodated within this building, the library design has been based on a future catchment population of approximately 82,000, which is expected in 2041. However, that needs to be noted that this excludes the Caloundra South area, and in fact, the population exceeds, in 2031, exceeds the population, it goes up to about 102,000 people. And then when the Caloundra South Library is built, the population comes back down to the 82,000 required. This provides for an area of approximately 3,941 square metres for a new district library, which is consistent with the Queensland Public Library Standards and Guidelines, and includes the core functions identified within Council's own Libraries Network Plan for a Tier 2 district library. There's a customer service centre proposed of approximately 122 square metres at the ground floor of this library. This will provide continuous, face-to-face customer service operations in Caloundra, complementing the other services centres in both Nambour and Maroochydore. The design provides for a modern customer service centre experience integrated within the ground floor. Community meeting spaces are also located within this building and are intended to be located on levels 2 and 3. And they provide flexible meeting areas and rooms with scope for after-hours use. The design of these meeting room ranges from approximately 16 square metres for a small meeting room space to up to 214 square metres. The rooms have been catered to size for expected community demand and anticipation. What is important to note is the 214 square metre room is actually the room you're currently sitting in and the adjacent Biawa room. And it's intended to retain the high ceilings and the gravitas of, in particular, this room, because of the very important decisions that have been made in the past by both the Caloundra City Council and, of course, Sunshine Coast Council. The council administration space of approximately 1,140 square metres is located on the 3rd floor of the building, and it provides general workspaces for staff and meeting rooms, as well as spaces for Divisions 1, 2 and 3 councillors. Careful consideration, of course, needs to be given to the operations and management of the building, and it is therefore recommended and contained within the recommendation that you'll consider today to provide a detailed operational management plan to be prepared for the building. The library design brief contemplates a contemporary, best practice district library within the existing Caloundra administration building, which is of high architectural standard, accessible, culturally inclusive, secure, safe, and importantly, sustainable. The design of the library floor layout, location, and interrelationship of the various areas has been undertaken in consultation with the library staff. The proposed design is consistent with the Queensland Public Library Standards and Guidelines and includes the core functions that a Tier 2 district library contains within it, which is also stipulated within the Libraries Network Plan. So just to run through some of those areas. Physical collection areas, public lounge and informal seating areas, quiet reading and study spaces, foyer and service area, flexible meeting training program spaces, a computer and technology hub, a digital hub, high-speed Wi-Fi, distinct areas for different user groups, including children, young people and adults, flexible maker space and wet area for a range of programs and workshops, small kiosk, which could potentially operate as a social enterprise space, access to outdoor activity, and storage spaces and equipment for materials. Workspaces within the building will provide, to the greatest extent possible, accommodation for council staff in accordance with our workplace strategy. This provides for approximately 200 staff to be accommodated within this building, along with space for Divisions 1, 2 and 3 councillors. With the advent of new approaches to work and more flexible workspace allocation arrangements that will apply in all of council's buildings, including the Sunshine Coast City Hall, it is considered that the majority of the staff population allocated to Caloundra would be able to be accommodated in the 120 workspaces on a regular basis, either within this repurposed building or the Caloundra Centre area overall. Other work locations such as Sunshine Coast City Hall and Nambour will also be able to be utilised if needed. The outdoor covered area shown on the plans, on the proposed design plans, provides all-weather access to the library as well as covered links and accessible links to the event centre, an important part of what was outlined in the Caloundra Centre master plan. The visibility to the event centre was a key criteria for this particular project. The proposed design does encroach into the adjoining Bill Bernardos Park by approximately 2.2 metres. It should be noted, however, that the wider community and creative hub that circles this building and surrounds this building will actually increase open space in the Caloundra area by more than 3,200 square metres. And for noting, the encroachment is around 74 square metres. Integration with open space and the potential for impacts on the existing vegetation will need to be carefully managed through detailed design process. That's the proposal going forward. It's important that those are managed through this process. It's intended that the proposed design, as detailed in the library design brief, it be used as the basis for future design, during which further modifications may occur. Detailed design will be completed in consultation, of course, with the suitably qualified arborist, with Council's own Parks and Gardens team, and also in consultation with, of course, the Customer Service Centre and the library staff, and that consultation will continue. Structural elements above and below the surface are intended to ensure that there is minimisation to any existing vegetation. So, councillors, the recommendation before you is on the screen: to receive and note the report, to approve the commencement of detailed design for the Caloundra Administration Building Repurposing project based on the project design brief contained within an Appendix A, and request the Chief Executive Officer to develop an operational management plan by the 30th of June 2022 for the shared use of the Caloundra Administration Building as outlined in the report. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Deborah. Happy to move. Councillor Landsberg, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Babarowski, thank you. Would you like to open, Councillor Landsberg?
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor, and thank you, Deborah. Wonderful presentation. Councillor Dixon reflected before talking about Honey Farm Road and the excitement with Councillor Peter Cox there. To say I'm excited is an understatement, and we've reached a milestone in this long process, which has started with the master planning for the Caloundra City Centre, which commenced in 2015, and that followed on by recommendations from the Caloundra Economic Revitalisation Strategy in 2014. The team, the PCG group and council officers have followed a methodical process to reach this point in time. And this project is supported by a host of policies in council: our environmental livability strategy, the Sunshine Coast Community Strategy, our libraries network plan, our corporate plan, the Caloundra City Centre Master Plan of 2017, and the operational plan. And it is designated as a major project within council. Especially to service what we're witnessing, and we spoke about Honey Farm, with the increase of our population, it is before time that this project will be a wonderful addition to the CBD of Caloundra. But I'd also like to acknowledge our other major projects that council have undertaken, and the expansion of the airport, the new Maroochydore City Centre, the broadband international subsea cable. These are all projects that are going to future-proof our region. But during our previous councillor, and I'd just like to acknowledge our former Deputy Mayor Tim Dwyer, that was in total support of these major projects. It's now time for Caloundra, and Caloundra's time has come. A key component of the Caloundra Centre activation project is repurposing this Caloundra administration building, and it will bring significant benefits to our community and local businesses and encourage that private sector investment. And I'd just like to just acknowledge our Iris Community Satisfaction Survey that was undertaken, and the top two acknowledgements of our community: number one is lifeguards, number two is libraries. And they always, every survey we hold in the community surveys, libraries feature extremely high on that necessity. The Caloundra Library has the highest visitation rate across any library across the Sunshine Coast. At its current size of 1,120 square metres, by the Queensland Library Network Plan, it should be servicing a population of 18,000. It currently services a catchment of 70,000 people. And if that catchment, as we spoke previously, is going to reach over 100,000 people by 2031, we are behind time in delivering this project. But it is time for us to deliver a contemporary library of the 21st century, and excitement for what our general public is going to be using this facility is going to be huge for our area of the Sunshine Coast. But more so, new libraries are now being integrated into public shopping centres, and Indooroopilly, Wynnum and Garden City have now actually have libraries into their shopping centres because they view them as a major economic driver. But libraries are more than books, and the residents love our personalised service that we give them from our specialised staff over there, which I'd like to accommodate. There's so many long-term council staff over there that do a wonderful job. The help to access digital and government services, the networking for our community groups, popular needs that really I was a bit surprised to see was micro herb gardens, nutrition, wellbeing, health and travel are one of the main attractors of our new libraries that this one will obviously deliver, and what our old library over there as well has been delivering for so long now. And also the tech support, offering that opportunity for one-on-one learning capabilities for not only our younger population, but obviously our older residents as well. But this will also offer an opportunity for our First Nations to have a neutral space in there where they can also program, they can share their culture, Indigenous history as well. So I'm looking forward to that potential opportunity as well, Deborah. Another popular attraction over there with the projects that they run is their multicultural language educational series, and they are extremely attractive, and Councillor David spoke about our increasing multicultural society here on the coast, so a wonderful addition.
Do you need an extension, Councillor? Someone move. Councillor Babrowski, seconded Councillor Johnston. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Carry on, Councillor.
And also we spoke about the activation project in terms of what it's going to activate this area of the CBD and the connectivity to our event centre. The walkthrough with the main foyer, which is going to really open up the Bill Bernardus Park out there and really encourage those outdoor activities. The walkthrough through Felicity Park, past the regional gallery into over 3,000 square metres open public space in the town square, and then a walkway down a Tranto, which we look at hopefully an Eat Street or an encouraging extra use facility down there, all the way down to the magnificent Palmerstone Passage on Bullcock Beach. But it's hoped that this project will also set a benchmark for future libraries on the Sunshine Coast. And in line with this, especially what we all learn from this project, we can use it for especially places like Nambour, which is very close to all of us here. We want to see this activation process as well continue on to other regions in the Sunshine Coast. So I'd like to ask for your support today, but I'll leave it at that for a second to talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. Councillor Babrowski.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you. Councillor Landsberg, that was a very comprehensive opening. But I'd like to ask a couple of quick questions, if I may, and then I can speak to it. So, first question is, can I assume that assuming that today's recommendations are approved to detailed design, that it will come back to Council with the final completed construction costs? Is that correct?
That's correct. Through you, Mr Mayor, that's correct.
Lovely,
Councillor
thank you.
Babrowski.
I just want to make that clear. And the second question is, I did raise this notion that if we're going to go to detailed design and construction, even though it's a repurposing, that we might be able to consider carbon neutrality or a carbon assessment. Is that possible with this building, considering it's a repurposing, not a new build?
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, yes it is. We're looking at all of those options for sustainability with respect to this building, and in fact, not just this building, but the wider Caloundra area that this project takes into account.
Lovely, thank you very much for that. So if I may, I'll speak to the motion now. Councillors, I can imagine back in 1995, when this building was first built, I think many of us as part of the community were a little bit wowed. It was out there. This was, as Councillor Landsberg basically pointed out, for what we're trying to achieve with this next repurposing, a benchmark. It was a benchmark building. It was a serious attempt to say we've matured as a community and we're setting a standard with the architecture, and it did. And I think it helped us all to move our thinking from being a relatively modest domestic tourism destination to something more than that, a city, Caloundra City. And I think what I'm so excited about is that that's being honoured so well in this repurposing. The redesign, as I think people will have seen from at least the concepts, pretty well developed concepts, that this is much more than a library. It's really a community hub. And it recognises that in its design and its programming and the operational budget that goes with that, that it's gone way beyond books. We completely recognise that books used to be an incredibly important resource that you had to give access to. If you wanted to be a modern contemporary society, you needed to democratise the access to books and therefore learning and information. And I think libraries have done that outstandingly well. But now the game's shifted. Democratisation to 3D printers, to IT, to technology, to all sorts of other aspects of the information world. That's what libraries have been moving towards, and this is our first. This is going to be our first, assuming this is endorsed and assuming we go to capital. This will be the first of a 21st century library that is looking very much about what people need to know going forwards. And that's exciting. And I think our community will love it. I think our community certainly deserves it. And like Councillor Landsberg, we've probably gained a small advantage by waiting this long because we didn't replicate a 20th century book-based model. This is a 21st century complex multi-purpose facility. And councillors, I hope that you, again, wholeheartedly support the recommendations today.
Thank you, Councillor Babrowski. Councillor Law.
Thank you, through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Landsberg, Deputy Mayor, spoken very well to the motion, really nothing to add there, but I do have a question, if I may. When I think about what's happening here and the potential of this project going forward, I'm taken very much to the similar scenario that needs to play out in Nambour, where coming up to almost a year of being in the role, of seeing how far advanced the repurposing and renovations for this building and this area of Caloundra, it's ready to go in relation to the City Hall opening in Maroochydore in 2022. So with everything that you've learned, Deborah, and you've learned with your team who've brought us to this point for Caloundra, how much acceleration will that give us for all of the work that now needs to happen in Nambour? When I look at 2017 to today, that's a long, long period of time, and I'm really looking for certainty for Nambour of what will be happening there as City Hall opens, as Caloundra is repurposed and renovated. What have you learned and how fast can we play catch up? And I'm thinking about that design and the feasibility and the spokes there, and also everything else. What can you just share to give us some confidence that it's not a 4 or 5 year process when we take this to Nambour?
Thank you. Thank you for your question, through you, Mr Mayor. I think the Caloundra has done much of the heavy lifting with respect to particularly the detailed design brief, the library brief that's been prepared for this building. What we understand is what makes up a Tier 2 district library and what the components of those are, as Councillor Babrowski spoke to, for the 21st century. So they're very different components. That's probably the first thing. We've unpacked the library's network plan. We've unpacked all the requirements with respect to the library standard guidelines as well. So I think that's a really good point that we can apply to the Nambour proposal. The second one is what we have seen is that clear strategic policy directions, vision and priorities all aligning to actually get the outcome and to where we've got to today. So I think that's incredibly important for Nambour as well, to ensure we have a clear strategy and a clear vision going forward. And I believe that we do have that for parts of Nambour and certainly for our council buildings in terms of the SCC workplaces piece. So we have that. In terms of the importance of capturing the current catchments and requirements of libraries of the 21st century and how they relate to their environment and what's surrounding them, I believe we've got that very clearly covered off as well. We're certainly very clear about what catchments, how far the catchments go and the catchments that support a library of this standard. Probably importantly, how council can affect what we've learned here, and we've seen it happen already, is with clear vision, clear direction and clear outcomes. We can see that the private sector and the momentum that's built from the private sector to understand the council's capital investment in its own buildings and its own projects is important to guide that momentum and to guide that strength in belief that actually a town can move forward. And I believe we've done that with Caloundra. So we've seen the private sector really embrace this proposed vision for this area and in fact put their money where their mouth is and invest in private infrastructure investments surrounding, and we've seen that already happening. And I believe that if this is supported today, I think we'll see that strengthen as we move forward in this project.
Thank you. So if I may speak to the motion through you, Mr Mayor. Obviously thinking of those responses, thank you very much, Deb, and thank you for the whole report. This is part of the whole of the future of the Sunshine Coast and where the staff will be, what will they be doing, and providing that confidence in three key centres is critical for the future of the coast that is going to be continuing to grow over the coming 20 years and well beyond that as well. So I'm particularly taken, and your experience, Councillor Landsberg, of the investment and the certainty and the determination of council demonstrating its intent for Caloundra being reflected back from the whole community and particularly the business community, which I know through a number of conversations that we've already had as a group of bringing that confidence for the folks of Nambour. So I'm really encouraged. This obviously needs to happen and the work that's gone into it, so I will give it my support today, and thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Law. Go to Councillor Cox.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I don't want to take anything away from the enthusiasm that Councillor Landsberg showed in his opening, but councillors, this is Caloundra's time to shine. Being an elected representative of the southern end of the coast, the last probably 9 years I've heard from our community, you know, that the northern end gets a lot more than the southern end, and that's been probably reflected in the CBD, Mooloolaba and the like, and as I said, this is Caloundra's time to shine. So I will certainly be supporting what we're proposing here today with the repurposing of this particular building. We've heard earlier about the connections between the Regional Art Gallery next door, the Event Centre on the other side. This will become the cultural hub for the Sunshine Coast, and that is really, really exciting for not only our community down the southern end, but for our wider Sunshine Coast community. We've heard about the undersized delivery of our current library and the catchment that it's designed to serve, and that of what it actually does serve both now and into the future. So having a library, a tier 2 library, will certainly just encourage this community to utilise it, and it really forms part of that cultural offering which I was just explaining. So with that, there's a couple of people that I would just like to pay acknowledgement to, and that being Miss Robinson and Ben, who's up the back here. It's been a long journey, especially for Ben, many years being involved with the Caloundra Master Plan, and I also can't acknowledge or not acknowledge anyone except the former councillor. I know that's already been touched on, but Councillor Dwyer was extremely passionate for this Caloundra community, and I know that he'd be very proud of the decision that hopefully we will be making here today. And I'd like to think that come 2022-23, when we have the official opening, I'd like to see him get extended an invitation to actually join us with that official opening. So I will be supporting this here today.
Thank you, Councillor Cox. Go to Councillor Suarez.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Before I have my question for Deborah, I just want to touch on a point Peter made about the northern communities getting more than the southern. I think you mean the central communities. Let's not forget about Division 9 further north of the river there. And we won't start that debate about coastal versus hinterland with Winston in the room. But my question for you, Deborah, is related to a point that I think Rick summed up, Councillor Babarowski summed up really beautifully, that this is more than just a library, it's a community hub. And I know in my community I get a lot of requests for community meeting space, affordable community meeting space. So my question is, and I'm not sure if you can answer it because it's more operational, those community meeting spaces, will they be free for the community's use or are they going to be paid? Like for hire?
Through Mr Mayor, obviously part of the recommendation today is the operational plan, operational and management plan. Those meeting spaces are both for the libraries, for library people that come to the library, but also for the community after hours. And in fact, the preliminary design shows a separate entrance so that those can be accessed out of hours and used for the community. I suppose the decision is yet to be made on whether they will be charged for or not charged for, but certainly they will be bookable meeting spaces within the library. So we're still to make that decision, and that will come out through detailed design and through the operational management plan.
Thank you for that. I suppose want to highlight a lot of the community associations that we have on the coast operate on a shoestring budget, so affordable options is really important for the community. And I think this is a really exciting plan. I can see how Councillor Landsberg is champing at the bit to have this underway, and I'm happy to support it today. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Suarez. There are no further speakers, so I'll go to Councillor Landsberg to close.
Thank you. Through you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the councils that have already spoken in support of this so far. I'd just like to say that, to the other officers behind the scenes that have spent many, many years, a lot of council officers that have not even here as well, but have been extremely passionate, and it's been a privilege to be engaged with them in my short term, at the moment just 12 months, and seeing the passion behind them to see this project delivered. And yes, Councillor Peter Cox, I'll definitely make sure that former Deputy Mayor Tim Dwyer will be invited to the opening. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Landsberg. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you. Rightio. Thanks very much, Deborah, for your presentation. We're going to move now to item 8.6, which is the February 2021 Financial Performance Report, and I invite Sharon and Isaac to give us a presentation.
Good morning. Good morning, Mr Mayor, councillors and council executives. Today I present to you the Financial Performance Report for February 2021. At the end of February, Council's operating result of $125.8 million is favourable to budget by $7 million. The favourable variance consists of revenue above budget of $3.1 million, as well as expenses below budget of $30.9 million. Council's revenue is tracking ahead of budget with an increase in waste collection services, resulting in cleansing charges rates above budget of $1.7 million. Council has also received additional revenue for holidays parks, refuse tip fees and development services search fees, all ahead of budget year to date. Council's expenditure is currently below budget, with corporate savings of $1.6 million being recognised and the balance being reduced expenditure in materials and services. The Capital Works program has progressed 56.2% of budget, with a total expenditure of $161 million. Council's core Capital Works program is 50.2% complete, currently on track for an above 90% completion by the end of the financial year. Council's cash at the end of February is $256 million. The recommendation today is that Council receive and note the report titled February 2021 Financial Performance Report.
Thank you very much, Sharon. Someone to move? Councillor Hungerford, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Natoli, thank you. Would you like to open, Councillor Hungerford?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I had all those highlighted. The figures have all been put down there in the report. What I'd like to say is it's a clear show that our operational and capital budgets are well on target. The underspends and overspends depends on the timing of projects and when the payments are made, so that fluctuates from month to month. All I can say is an excellent result. We're sustainably on target, and I think it's a real credit to the whole organisation and staff across all the areas to consistently deliver these reports in the same month after month. And it's a very good result and shows we have very competent people right throughout the organisation. I think that's the thing I like to highlight. This isn't achieved by us here. When you give the strategic guidelines, it's the staff that actually lay it out, and it's consistently a very sound approach, and the results are outstanding each month. So I won't read them out in detail. I've done that before, but I'd really like to pass on the whole organisation. We have excellent staff at all levels, and they're performing exemplary. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. There are no further speakers. Councillor Dixon.
Yeah, just through you, Mr. Mayor, a question, happy for you to take this on notice. I don't expect an answer right now. It's in regards to the state and federal stimulus money. There's an attachment with projects. Could I just get some more information on the Albany Lake Sippy Downs play space? It says we've expended, I'm thinking that's 109,000 of the funds. I'm not sure we've actually done any physical work at all. I know we've just done community consultation, but don't imagine that's cost $100,000.
Through the Chair, I'm happy to take that on notice and provide you with further detail. Thank you.
There are no further speakers. Do you need to close, Councillor? We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Sharon and Isaac. Councillors, the next two items we don't have presentations for, but you have had the presentation. 8.7 is on the consolidation of local laws and subordinate local laws. We've got Shelley here to ask any questions we might have. Someone prepared to move? Councillor Hungerford, thank you. A seconder, Councillor Dixon, thank you. Would you like to speak to the motion, Councillor?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a very concise summary of what this means. Consolidating local laws and subordinate local laws is a way that reduces the risks of breaches and incorrect interpretation of local law provisions, as well as making it easier for them to be read and understood by the community. A consolidated version combines a local government's local law as it was originally made, with all subsequent amendments. Now, over time, there are amendments made to these, and you've got to read the original and then each amendment to get to what it means. That is not only difficult for our staff, but difficult for the community to understand as well. So as such, this consolidated local law and report does not include any new material, not previously considered or adopted by Council, and formally published in the Government Gazette as part of the local lawmaking process. This is about consolidating into one document. You can clearly see what it says and where we're at with each local law. Makes it easier for our staff and the community to interpret and understand.
Thank you, Councillor Hungerford. No further speakers to the motion. We'll put the motion to the vote. Those in favour? It's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Item 8.8, similarly, delegations to the Chief Executive Officer. Our officers, Shelley and Brendan, are here if there are any questions. Can I have someone move, please? Happy to, Councillor Hungerford, thank you. And a seconder, sorry, Councillor Johnston.
The purpose of this report is to satisfy the requirements for an annual review and to update the existing council to the Chief Executive Officer Delegation Instrument to include the new Australian Foreign Relations State and Territory Arrangements Act 2020. It's a Commonwealth Act. And a number of other Queensland state legislations and subordinate legislatives identified in the annual review. And this is just a review and adjustment of any changes. Council has a range of powers and functions to perform, which are conferred under a number of different acts of Parliament, including the Local Government Act 2009, as well as subordinate legislation and local laws. Council is able to delegate its powers to implement and enforce these responsibilities under Section 257 of the Local Government Act 2009. So this is just a review, clarification, and it's business as normal. So this is a straight out annual administrative function and tidying up of where we're at.
Thank you, Councillor. There are no further speakers. You don't need to close, Councillor. Put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, councillors. Thank you, Kim and Shelley. Item 9 are notices of motion, which there are none. Item 10 are petitions, there are none. We have one item to go into confidential session, and I just commence that process by a few words. Councillors, before we move into confidential session, do any of you wish to declare any personal interest in relation to the item that's going to be discussed? And if that is the case, you will also be required to declare any personal interest when council resumes open session to make the decisions. Nobody? Good. Councillors, as I said, we have one report on the agenda today that the Chief Executive Officer has recommended be considered in closed session. This recommendation has been made on the basis the information contained in the report is considered to be confidential, as its public disclosure would potentially impact adversely on the finalisation of a current commercial negotiation process and Council's ability to secure land parcels at a price that represents the best value for the ratepayers of the region. For these reasons, it has been recommended that Council close the meeting under section 254J(3)(G) of the Local Government Act 2012 to consider and discuss the information in this report. Noting, of course, that Council's decision on this agenda item will be made during the open session, which will be viewable by the public. Councillors, is someone prepared to move that we close the meeting to discuss agenda item 11.1? Councillor Suarez, thank you. Seconded by Councillor Hungerford. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. So, councillors, we're now moving into closed session. I'll just wind up the... So we're now back into open session. Now back in open session, and we will take the vote on item 11.1, for which the recommendation is on the screen. Councillor Suarez, do you want to add anything to that?
Yes, if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to say to the staff that I appreciate the time, effort and energy that went into attempting to make this report public with confidential attachments and the difficulty that went along with that. And as the Mayor mentioned earlier, outlined earlier, the reasons for this item to go to confidential were necessary. And I'd just like to reiterate some comments made by Councillor Law a number of days ago, where he stated that this council has made great strides forward with our confidentiality, particularly with council reports, and as an organisation we should not go backwards in the good work that has been done to date. So I agree with those statements, and I encourage council staff to do as was done here in the first place and consider every report to be public, and where it's impossible to do so, that's the only reason we go to confidential. Thank you. Happy to support.
Thank you. I just want to confirm that Councillor Suarez is the mover, Councillor Natoli is the seconder. No, I thought Councillor Natoli was the seconder. Yep. So, thank you, Councillor Suarez. No further speakers to the motion. We'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour? That's carried unanimously. Thank you, everybody. That brings us to a conclusion of our ordinary meeting. So I'll close the meeting. Just before you guys don't run away just yet, I'll close the meeting at 12:16. And I just wanted to advise everybody who wasn't already aware that last night the Banksia Awards, which are national awards, Sunshine Coast Council was recognised as the recipient of the Government Award. And we had a number of us gathered at venue 114 to celebrate that occasion. It would have been nice to have had that recognition and celebration with all of our staff today, but it's a bit difficult given the time elapsed or time needed. So we'll do that at the next council meeting, recognise the staff, present the trophy. But it was a very exciting night, although Councillor Suarez noted I didn't smile very much, but it was great fun. And I said to Councillor Law this morning, there were two excellent examples, I think, in the world's largest garage sale, which I know we already have, but I think can be improved immeasurably, and particularly for a community like Nambour. And the other one was the Icon Water from Canberra. And I understand one of the people involved in that is a former Sunshine Coast Council employee. So, and I thought that was also extremely good and should provide, great challenge to us and our staff and some of the things we want to do around utilisation of waste. And the circular economy. So on those notes, thank you.